Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chip Bishop, and I'll be your moderator for this afternoon's news conference. The way this is going to work is we're going to ask the participants to introduce themselves, and we'll also invite any media representatives who are on the line to also introduce themselves. I will have a really brief opening statement. Then I'm going to call on our participants to make 1-minute statements each on the topic of their choosing. And then we will get to questions and answers. So if the media could please hold their questions until the end, that would be terrific. So why don't we start with quick introductions of the participants who are around this table. And we'll start on my right with Tom.
Tom Bernardo. I am the Community Relations Director for Barnstable Second Representative Demetrius Atsilis.
I'm Glenn Watley, President and CEO of the Alliance to Protect Nantucket Sound.
Ron Borgeson, Commercial Fisherman.
Ed Barrett, Commercial Fisherman, President of the Massachusetts Fishermen's Partnership.
Cliff Carroll, one of the founders of Windstock.org.
Bill Marasco, the Yarmouth Town Selectman.
Wayne Kirker from Hyannis Marina.
George Chucky Green, Mashpee Selectman, Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe.
Lindsay Council, Executive Director of Three Bays Preservation in Austin.
Neil Good from Mashpee, longtime member of the Falmouth Historical Commission.
I'd like to now ask any participants who are on the telephone to identify themselves. Donna?
Donna Tracy. I'm president of Hudson Valley Raptor Center and Wild Care Inc.
Anyone? Any other participants?
This is Jeff Blanchard from CapeCodToday.com.
Any other media would like to introduce themselves? Okay. Anyone else on the line? Okay. The message of the event today from the people around this table is pretty simple. And that is the draft DEIS that was published recently by the Minerals Management Service is inadequate and it's flawed. It confuses public safety issues related to aviation and navigation. It ignores the concerns of local and regional officials and ignores the threat to the livelihood of fishermen in Nantucket Sound. Those themes will be amplified on by the people around the table today. And we've asked people again to limit their remarks to 1 minute. And we will start with Tom Bernardo, who is representing Representative Demetrius Atsilis, and then we will go to Selectman Bill Marasco.
Thank you. A unique opportunity to establish a solid, consistent, and public-friendly process has been missed by our federal officials. The releasing of the environmental impact statement at this time, before pending regulations were released, not only puts the proverbial cart before the horse, it removes the very existence of there being a horse, because we are now asking the public to comment on this report over the next 60 days without the public knowing what and or which regulations will be guiding this and or other like projects of its kind. This project is not the rock bed of quality that projects should be being established to allow this nation to go forth in offshore wind development. This process is a thin one, and a thin process begets a bad project, and this project is bad. Despite a contingent, as recently led by State Representative Demetrius Atsilis last month, with 7 members who spent the entire day down in Washington meeting with the heads of Minerals Management and the Interior Department, exhaustively going over the multitudes of concerns about this project, we find ourselves here today. Going forward, the Office of Representative Atsilis will be joining others in calling for an extension of the comment period from 60 to 120 days. and also calling on our federal delegation to roll up their collective sleeves and to help. Despite the economic numbers which shows this project, Cape Wind, it continues to limp along with its goal of producing some of the most expensive electricity in the history of this nation and producing claims of false public benefits. This project has not and is not about green energy. It is not about green peace. This project is all about green backs and dollars. And it remains a flawed and poorly designed project. Thank you.
Let's go now to Yarmouth Selectman Bill Marasco, to be followed by Mashpee Selectman Chucky Green. Mr. Marasco?
Recently, as Thomas said, a group of concerned citizens went to Washington to discuss this project and the impacts it's going to have locally. Here in the Cape, we're very used to working together. It seems that even if your neighbor wants to put up a shed, there are always concerns about how to fit into the neighborhood, what are the end results of it, and we even spend many times on minor issues like that. It's unfortunate that on a major issue that is going to affect our environment for the in the foreseeable future, it's going to put 25 square miles of an industrial energy complex buried 81 feet in the ground, right in the middle of what we consider here in the Cape a conservation part of our community. We also went there asking to work with the department there in trying to find a best place to place a project. We are willing and we are trying to find green energy solutions to the problems in Yarmouth. We asked, we would be more than happy to work with the developer to put these in a place that suits the environment better. We'd be more than happy to put these on land. We're trying to get a municipal bylaw passed in the town of Yarmouth. None of these concerns were represented in the report. And it's very disappointing that we on the Cape that are used to working together and are used to having local concerns from our neighbors heard, that our neighbor, the federal government, is ignoring the concerns that we have here.
Thank you, Bill. Selectman Chucky Green of Mashpee.
Well, it's a sad day because, as one of the participants in the meeting that was discussed by my last two speakers, I felt that they were listening to us when we were there. And then I opened the report and started to read through it, and was totally shocked and dismayed at what I found. It didn't seem like they had heard anything that we had said. We have a regulatory board here on the Cape Cod Commission. You would think that this body would have had some impact in at least a decision process that these gentlemen took on. But it didn't seem like that made any difference either. We had three selectmen sitting at the table, talking to the Minerals Management Service, telling them the needs of our three towns to keep this property open for fishing, open for recreation, open for just. We had two tribes represented, saying that there were significant issues to the tribes. None of that appeared in the report. The tribes were put down in the report as their view won't be affected. I didn't hear any of the tribal members mention a view when we were in Washington. I don't know where they got that. Thank you very much.
John Griffin, Vice Chairman, Barnstable Airport Commission.
Good evening. Glad I could make it. Just as a matter of course, the Barnstable Municipal Airport Commission has for quite a long time now been on record as opposed to this project on matters of air safety and just air navigation in this area. It appears that, it's pretty clear that the MMS draft basically failed or ignored to, the concerns of pilots, airline operators, and our airport management, and not only here at Hyannis, but also our neighbor airports on the islands. There's approximately, based on your count, approximately 400,000 flights annually that traverse this area at various altitudes, most of them low altitude. And the FAA right now they haven't concluded, but there is a presumed hazard determination that is under study. There's going to be some of that. Part of the job of the airport commissions and all who operate around these areas is air safety. I mean, we all encourage and do everything we can to improve safety. To erect a 25 square mile barrier that is, upwards of 400, nearly 500 feet high at the tops of the blade arcs, is a situation where under VFR conditions, under certain conditions, and also unknown yet, at least unknown in this country, or unstudied properly in this country, the effects on air search, air traffic control, and air defense radar. This is not to include the paved pause. That's different. That erects a potentially hazardous situation in Nantucket Sound, where we have frequent, incursions of fog and other sorts of weather. This commission is opposed to it based on location, not on concept. We just believe that it represents an extremely potentially hazardous situation to safe air navigation.
Thank you, John. Let's go now to Fisherman Ron Borgeson.
Thank you. I'm totally amazed that this has gone as far as it was, and the fact that the minerals management took the responsibility as a government agency to oversee this project, to say that it would not have any adverse effects on the Horseshoe Shoal area. In 1995, Horseshoe Shoal in Nantucket Sound was deemed a critical habitat area by NOAA Fisheries, which means it's a very important area to fish, as we as commercial fishermen all realize. So here we have one sector of the government that says this is a critical habitat area and things have to be watched and monitored very closely. Yet we have another sector of the government that's going to allow to have blasting and drilling and dredging go on in this critical habitat. So I just can't even believe that this thing has gone as far as it has. And then to see the minerals management group say, yes, this is okay, it just tells me, it shows me that I don't even think they read the initial EIS.
Thank you, Ron. Ed Barrett of the Massachusetts Fishermen's Partnership.
Hi, my name is Ed Barrett, and I represent the Massachusetts Fishermen's Partnership, and we are a umbrella group of 18 fishing associations in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We, the MFP, strongly disagree with the findings of the Mineral Management Services DEIS. At a time when we are facing severe cuts in the commercial fisheries of Nantucket Sound, the Cape Wind project is going to dredge, plow, and possibly explode parts of essential fish habitat over a course of 3 years. We feel the impact of this construction will not be minimal, but in fact be detrimental. It is unfair and unequitable to ask the recreation and commercial fishing communities to make sacrifices to improve the health of this ecosystem, while at the same time allowing a construction project that will build 140 44-story structures on an area determined by National Marine Fisheries Service to be habitat area of particular concern. We look to our area's political leadership, to National Marine Fisheries Service, to the Division of Marine Fisheries, and to the Governor of our Commonwealth to recognize our concerns. There are better options.
Thank you, Ed. Let's go now to Glenn Watley of the Alliance to Protect Nantucket Sound.
I'd like to focus my remarks on the economics of Cape Wind. We've been looking at Appendix F, which is the financial analysis of this project. And as earlier mentioned, there is statements in the report that show the project is not only very expensive, but the evaluated cost is above the current market in Massachusetts and New England. This means the project would not be profitable, and if a contract were signed to try to make the contract profitable, or the project profitable, it would in fact raise the cost of electricity in this region. And this is counter to the promises that were made years ago that the wind is free and this project would reduce our electric bills. In no part of this report can we find any economic benefit for the ratepayers. So we will be pursuing diligently analysis to protect the ratepayers in this region and to show this is not a good project. As previously mentioned, it is very flawed. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Next is Cliff Carroll of windstop.org.
Yes, I'll make my statement brief also. The Minerals Management Services, DEIS, has once again ignored the environmental disaster presented by the 40,000-gallon electric service platform, which will be situated in the middle of our fishing grounds just off of our beaches. Despite the fact that Cape Wind's own oil spill report states that there is a greater than 90% chance that in the event that this oil platform is ruptured, that the oil slick will hit our beaches of Nantucket Sound in the event of a spill in as little as 4.8 hours. MMS has still rated this risk as minor to moderate, and minor when affecting things, as previously mentioned, essential fish habitat. In 2005, every coastal town located on the Nantucket Sound demanded to know the toxicity levels of the transformer oil contained in this 10-story structure. Minerals Management and Cape Wind have refused to provide this information so that a proper mapping of the true damage to our natural resources and economic zones can be developed. The Cape Wind chart shows this oil entering rivers, entering our beaches, and entering our marshes throughout Nantucket Sound in as little as 4.8 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. Next we'll go to Lindsay Council of Three Bays Preservation.
Three Bays is the owner of Dead Neck Island, which is an 85-acre wildlife sanctuary on Nantucket Sound. And I've been asking the same question for years. Although there's been a lot of bird counting going on out there, and this is reflected in the report again, there has been no analysis of the Sound in general as a wildlife habitat. The problem being there are more than 20 critical wildlife habitats that ring Nantucket Sound. And in none of the information that I've seen has anyone taken a look at these various sites out there and what the interrelationship is of them. This is an absolutely critical point that's lacking. I will reflect back to the April storm that we had, the so-called Patriots Day storm. We were out on the island getting set up for a year. The birds were coming in, the storm came, and the birds virtually disappeared. And they were gone for 2 weeks. We don't know where they went. They flew away. The island was completely vacant. And there is no information on where they went. Did they go to one side of the Sound or another? Did they go inland? And I'd say this is true throughout the Sound. We just don't know how these birds are using this area in this environmentally critical and sensitive zone here that we have. So we need more information on just how the Sound really works. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Let's go to Wayne Kirker of Hyannis Marina.
Yes, I'm going to speak to marine safety. In 2003, the United States Coast Guard instructed Cape Wind to produce a navigational risk assessment. Cape Wind did. They produced a very subpar document, and the Coast Guard's response was having them reproduce one. So Cape Wind produced a revised navigational risk assessment. Now watching the DEIS come out, you can see that the same items that the Coast Guard was asking of Cape Wind in 2003 are repeated in 2008, as it turns out. So Cape Wind hasn't adequately addressed radar or ice flows or ice many marine safety items, which I can elaborate on if anybody cares to ask.
Thank you, Wayne. Donna Tracy on the telephone is an avian expert. Donna?
Nantucket Sound is in the middle of a critical migratory bird flyway and endangered species habitat. This is known and cannot be disputed. The DEIS finding of minor impact to birds and endangered species shows no obvious indication that is based on science, and in fact, it seems to elude any basic common sense that public interest can clearly see, since section after section state that few to no scientific studies have been done. Therefore, it seems impossible to make any judgment at all as to the impact Cape Wind would have on these species. The feds continue to trivialize impacts to endangered species, the hundreds of thousands of sea ducks that live in the Nantucket Sound, and the millions of neotropical songbirds that fly through it during migrations. They chose to ignore the huge amounts of missing information on how these birds actually use the sound and how they will be affected by Cape Wind. The document indicates that mitigation is a cure-all in form of their so-called environmental management system. However, there is no mitigation when it comes to endangered species, since any loss is unacceptable. And quite simply, mitigation has been shown not to work. Altamont Pass, where thousands upon thousands of migratory birds are killed every year, is the only working model of mitigation, and it is failing. Isn't that proof enough? The experience of Altamont Pass tells us, if you don't get it right the first time, why get it wrong again? Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And our last presenter is historian Neil Good.
Well, I'd like to say that I believe there's a ray of bright sunshine in the DEIS. I think people may find that surprising, but early in the document is the list of summary of impacts, and following a long list of negligible to minor impacts that the Minerals Management Service has listed. 21st on the list is cultural resources, which involves historical preservation issues, I guess I could say. And after that, under operational impacts, are the words pending on the outcome of the Section 106 process. Well, that involves the National Historic Preservation Act, which I think some people who are interested in finding out deals with preservation of sites around the country that are important in American history. Well, I believe it's going to become apparent to people who follow this controversy this year that there is an issue that has essentially been overlooked by the MMS, but will become a matter, I believe, of great concern. It is of concern to me, and it involves the earliest written references to North America. I believe the Cape Wind people have identified what they believe, and I agree, is a unique area off our coastline, and I believe it's described in the very earliest written European references to North America. And I believe that later on this winter, early spring, we'll hear more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. That concludes the presentations today. I'd like to throw the floor open to questions. We have a number of media in the room as well as some on the telephone, so please go ahead with your questions and identify yourself if you're going to make an answer so people will know who's talking.
Could you Good spell his name for me, please?
G-O-O-D.
How about the Neil?
Neil. N-E-I-L.
Thank you.
That was easy.
I have harder ones. Is there someone from the Alliance who can speak to the things that were contained in the MMS report that the Alliance found encouraging or supportive of its side?
When you say its side, this is Glenn Watley talking, do you mean the side of the Alliance?
Right. Other than projections about money and rates and whatnot, were there specific things that you take away from the report that you find encouraging?
We're still in the evaluation mode of all the topics that these other speakers have been addressing. At this point, I don't think we have found anything encouraging.
Is it true the Alliance has spent $20 million so far?
So far since when? The beginning?
Right.
I'm not sure if it's that much.
But you wouldn't quibble with it?
Well, maybe 15.
Is there a limit?
No, but no, I'm not sure. And we're committed. We're committed to see this project fail, or to find an alternate solution, as some others have suggested.
And would that necessarily be a location change?
Yes, that location change would certainly be acceptable, and we have looked at the analysis of the alternative sites. We're still evaluating it. It was interesting that MMS did not identify Horseshoe Shoal as the preferred alternative site. So that opens the door for discussions about other, well, let me answer your question, about other sites.
Let's go to Ed Maroney for a question. Speak up,
I guess to Glenn at this point, or if that's appropriate, with the release of the DEIS, has this moved out of any sort of, has this realistically moved out of any sort of review process, and it's at this point primarily a political and legal battle to advance your cause?
Right now it's a permit review process, and
do you see that as practically leading to any sort of change, or do you think you really have to?
It depends. If the permits are denied, I guess we don't see anything beyond that.
From a navigational point of view, it certainly might. For example, the Coast Guard gave these fellows pages of information they want to see cleared up, and it's the same information they've been asked for since 2003 and earlier. So unless Cape Wind comes up with a miraculous way to dismiss all of these navigational hazards, I don't see how the Coast Guard is going to pass this project.
So basically, people around the table are hopeful they will be heard in this process, and that there could be a change in the document, a major change in the document.
Oh yes, yeah, we're committed to participate in the review process, to give our comments to MMS, and we hope that they're taken seriously.
Any other questions from any members of the media who have not asked a question yet?
Yeah,
Elizabeth?
I have a question, and it could be just directed generally if someone wants to field it. I'm from WCAI. I hear a lot of you guys saying the term that the MMS ignored our concerns, and I've been reading the document and a little bit here and there, and there's a whole part where they acknowledge all of the comments that were raised in the previous processes that we've gone through. So I'm sort of wondering, like, it didn't seem like they weren't hearing from you. It sort of seemed like they weren't reaching the same conclusion, and there seems to be, a difference there. So, like, I could ask specifically with the airport concerns, do you feel like you were just ignored, or that they reached the wrong conclusion?
The FAA hasn't finished.
The FAA is still studying it, and it's inconclusive. It remains to be seen. In my opinion, it's been a long way to go to satisfy the concerns of the people who are actually flying out there.
The FAA stated that they needed till April or May to finish their studies.
Yep.
So the FAA won't weigh in heavily until, of course, their studies are finished.
Right. I guess that's actually, that was a bad one to pick, I guess. Let's say fishing, for example, like they review, the information for them and come up with this determination that it would be negligible to minor. So I guess my question would sort of be like, why would someone coming to those two competing claims, say from Ed Martin? Barrett. Someone coming to those two competing assessments, one from you and one from the MMS, why should they credit, your assessment?
I think you have to look at who was doing the assessment. Clearly, National Marine Fisheries Service was not doing the assessment. Clearly, the Division of Marine Fisheries Service was not doing the assessment. We had Minerals Management Service doing assessment that, I don't know if that's actually the part of the federal government that should be doing that assessment. So I really think that as we go forward in with the DEIS and in the comment period, that you're going to hear from NMFS and the New England Fishing Management Council and the Atlantic States Management Council. And I don't think that they're going to necessarily be agreeing with the outcome of the Minerals Management Service.
Mm-hmm. And their conclusion that the gear that you'll be able to still carry on your same activities with dragging
Totally
around.
false. Totally false. there is no way that mobile gear fishermen will be able to fish in that area. And as we said, there might not even be a sea bass fishery this summer, and that is for conservation reasons. Now, at the same time, you're going to be proposing to put in 44-story structures in that same area, and you say you're going to be working against each other. And I think that it really it shows that that the biology is just not being taken into full consideration.
I'd like to say something.
Identify yourself, Donna, please.
I'd like to say that reading and reviewing information is quite different from actually investigating and looking into it.
Donna Tracy.
Oh.
Yes.
Donna Tracy, who is a Navy expert. Any other questions? Sue Nickerson?
Can I offer a comment from the arena here? I've actually spent a lot of time reviewing the draft environmental impact statement, not reading it word for word, but certainly looking carefully at every section. So, Elizabeth, in response to your statement, yes, there is a section of the DEIS that summarizes all of the concerns, in general ways that have been raised since the beginning of this project. So that was encouraging to see that they actually did hear what those issues are. The question now is, have they responded to them, number one, and have they responded to them accurately? And that's what we're going to be spending the next several weeks looking at. What are the bases behind that summary table in the executive summary that qualifies almost every single impact as either minor or negligible? And we obviously have some strong sentiments about whether or not that's accurate, and now we need to dig into the actual backup, all of the reports. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of pages of information that we need to look at and evaluate and respond to. The early signals are there are some significant problem areas, and we're highlighting those by way of this press conference today.
Chip, if you wouldn't mind.
Jeff, go ahead.
First of all, thanks for having me on the phone. I appreciate it. And back to Neil Good, I was wondering if that would be an underwater archaeology project or something being done on land.
Well, it'd be incredibly complicated to explain it here, but it involves a theory that was proposed back in 1964. A researcher from Norway said that Loch Hoy Bay could be the lake that's described in the Greenlander saga, first written document that refers to North America without question. The point is, Horseshoe Shoal goes dry at low tide, according to Cape Wind and everyone, I think, who's followed this debate from the beginning. The point is that the Greenlander saga says that the Norsemen had discovered North America and attempted to settle somewhere on what most researchers believe is the south coast of Cape Cod. The saga says that they set sail west into the sound made up of extensive shallows and were left high and dry there with the sea almost out of sight. Yet they were so anxious to get to shore that they ran to shore in the ship's boat to a place where a river flowed out from a lake. Well, in 1964, that Norwegian researcher proposed that that lake could be Loch Hoy Bay. But he had no idea that Horseshoe Shoal went dry at low tide. And that's the issue that I think is going to become important down the road.
Thank you very much.
All right, we have time for one more question from the media. Yes?
So to fill in these gaps that are missing... I'm sorry?
Who are you?
I'm Dan Coffin from Rebirth Productions. So to fill in the gaps that are missing in the DEIS, what are the actual means by which you can do that, either legal or political, and are there any plans for that?
Can I address that?
Let's have a comment from Audra Parker of the Alliance to Protect Nantucket Sound.
It underscores the need for the public comment period, and I think now is the mechanism. This is a draft report, and I think it's important for everyone to recognize and remember that it is a draft report. 3 or 4 years ago, when the Army Corps came out with its draft report, it was heavily criticized by key agencies like the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Interior itself. So now the public hearing and the public comment period is the mechanism for a critical evaluation of the draft environmental impact statement, prior to going to any kind of a final statement. So this is the opportunity to address the gaps, to identify the issues like in fisheries that Ed Barrett pointed out, issues on Coast Guard and issues on FAA that yet to be resolved. So again, it's a draft report, and it's not a final, it's not an approval.
All right, for those media who are in the room, the participants will be available for one-on-one questions. And we thank all of you for participating, and have a good evening.
Thank you.